So the last thing we're going to look at is if a function is defined for you as an equation rather than as a table or a graph. This is the most mathy part of today's lesson. This is the part where you're going to have to do some sort of arithmetic as you're working. So this is the way this is what an equation looks like for function notation. Notice how the input is not a number right now. The input is x, which can represent a number, but we don't know what that number is. So the relationship here, whatever your input is, you're going to do 4 minus 2 times the input, and that will give you the output. As you're doing these problems, so here's an example of one, f of -1. So now our input is -1, and our equation tells us that we're going to do 4 minus 2 times -1. I want you to really be aware of order of operations as you're doing this. Just a reminder about order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally is one way to remember order of operations. The please stands for parentheses. Parentheses or other grouping symbols go first. Excuse stands for exponents, so if you have any exponents, those would go second. My dear goes together. My dear is multiplication and division. Multiplication and division are equal. They happen from left to right. So you want to make sure that you treat those as the same level. And Aunt Sally is also going to be the same level. Addition and subtraction go from left to right as well. So here's our function, and we're going to use -1 for our input. So this becomes f of -1 equals 4 minus 2 times -1. Now this time the parentheses does mean times. I'm inputting -1, and so I would do multiplication here. So now if I look at this, I have some subtraction and I have some multiplication. I will do the multiplication first because my dear comes before Aunt Sally. So it's going to be 4 minus 2 times -1 would be -2. Sometimes we put parentheses around those negative numbers just to kind of keep the sign isolated. That's sort of optional. But also remember, if we're subtracting a negative number, that's actually equivalent to adding. So this becomes 4 plus 2. So our answer would be 6 after we do all of that arithmetic. Okay? Make sure when you do the arithmetic that you are using order of operations correctly. All right? So here's f of 5. Our input is 5. I'd recommend that you try it and then restart the video when you're done so that you can see if you did it correctly. So f of 5 would be 4 minus 2 times 5. Multiplication comes before subtraction, so we're going to turn that into 4 minus 10, and then the last thing we would do is subtraction. So 4 minus 10 would be -6. It's 4 degrees outside, it goes down 10 degrees out, so it would be a -6. All right, so that's a whole summary of all different ways of using function notation, what a function is and how you can talk about functions and use functions in different contexts. Thank you so much.